Hi everybody, Herb Koehler here with Lifestyle 180, the group that's designed to help you hit the financial reset button. And for those of you who missed part one, this is Jo Bennett with Edward Jones, and she is the financial advisor that is a huge team member on our group. And we just got through the live presentation, and for those of you who missed it, you can visit the link and download the presentation, which talked about the business equation. It talked about what is it that small business and self-employed people should be thinking about when they're trying to get their financial house in order, get their financial planning in order. So now we get to the really fun part where we get to troubleshoot a little bit. We get to talk about, based on where you are, what are the things that you might want to consider based on your starting point? Where are you right now? Where do you want to go? And what are the necessary steps to get there? So, Jo,
yes.
For those of us who weren't at the live part that we just did, full disclosure, you are my sister-in-law.
Yep.
Okay, and so I am going to be a little bit biased. She's my favorite financial advisor, but I'm still going to give you a hard time, and
okay.
I'm going to ask you some questions. All right.
Sure.
So let's start with the easiest one.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say that I'm just a young, single, W-2 worker.
Yep.
All I do is I go to work. I'm responsible. I'm just trying to pay my bills, advance my career, and put some money away for my future. Let's say that my employer gives me something along the lines of a 401k.
Sure.
Let's say even above and beyond that, I have maybe a few $100s a month extra that I'd like to put somewhere. What might be some ideas that would make sense?
Well, I always encourage any of my clients that do work for a company that provide a 401k as a benefit to participate. I mean, it's the single vehicle that you can use to put away a lot of money, and a lot being if you are under 50 right now in 2020, you could put as much as $18,000 away. Not everybody does, but you can. And that $18,000 that you could put away in a 401k can be pre-tax, which means if you make $40,000 and you're putting away $18,000 away, instead of being taxed on the full 40, you can actually be taxed $18,000 less than $40,000. So if you did the math, you would be paying tax on $22,000 instead of $40,000. So that's a great advantage for anybody who's working and has the availability to put the maximum away in a 401k. If you don't have a 401k and you are working, let's say your company doesn't provide a 401k, you absolutely can put money away for yourself in a personal IRA. So depending on what your situation is, and I can always help figure out what that is, you can put it away pre-tax, which means you're going to take the tax deduction today. Or if you want to wait and you're not so concerned about paying the taxes for it now, you could take a Roth account, a personal Roth account, pay for the taxes, and put it away for the future.
Great. Okay,
Yeah.
So in other words, make sure that you're not giving too much money to the IRS. Right? That's
Yes.
what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
The more you can sock away in one of those 401ks, the lower it makes your taxable income,
Right.
the more of a break you get when it comes to be tax time.
Sure.
All right. Now, let's say similar point in my life, but instead of going the W-2 route, maybe I started a business, a landscaping business, or maybe I'm a handyman. I'm making the same amount of money. I'm not making a killing, but it's enough to pay my bills, enough for me to have some money extra. What are my options if I'm self-employed? Probably went over this in the live presentation, but let's just revisit that.
Sure. So if you own a business, there are other vehicles that you can do to put money away for yourself. If you're a proprietor, you could actually set up a self-employed pension plan or a SEP. If you have workers, if you have a landscaping company, you have, let's say, 2 or 3 workers, maybe a simple plan may be the way to go. If you have no other workers and it's just you and your spouse, you can put together a 401k or a solo K, or at Edward Jones we call it an owner K, which is a 401k retirement plan made for business owners, assuming you don't have any other employees other than your spouse, or it could be another brother or sister. But essentially you could put as much as $58,000 away, tax deferred, in a single year if you set up an owner K and pay less in taxes. And by the way, if you are a general contractor or somebody that has to pay workers' comp, it will lower your taxable workers' compensation that you have to pay. So there's a lot more tax benefits to it there. In addition to any setup fee for the owner K is also tax deductible. And in 2020, the IRS has actually set up some incentives for employers to set up 401k plans for businesses. So if you've never set one up before and you happen to have a business that employs people and on a W-2 basis, you can set up a brand new 401k plan and have as much as up to $5,000 a year for the next 3 years, so up to $15,000, just by setting up a retirement plan for you and your business and your employees.
So they're paying you to not pay taxes, folks, in case you're trying to understand. So some bigger potential numbers we're talking about. You're talking about $58,000 coming off the top out of pre-taxable income. That can make a very big difference. If you're a small business self-employed, you have some employees, you're worried about workers' comp costs, it affects that too. So, and you have to think more strategically. You don't have as many options if you're somebody who's just working W-2. But when everything's on your shoulders in terms of how the business is run and how allocations and everything occurs, you have to think strategically, or you have to have somebody on your team who can think strategically for you. All right, so let's kick this up a notch. You mentioned a solo 401k. I know that's a really popular option with a lot of real estate investors that we work with. They have their own mom and pop companies. A lot of time it's them, their spouse, maybe a kid or two. And so that's one reason it's popular. The other reason it's popular is because they like the idea that they have more options to invest with the solo. And it's also a way where they can gain access to liquidity. Right? So if they need that money, maybe to get a killer deal done or something, it's not all locked up. They're not worrying about, oh no, I don't have access to that money.
Correct. So the reason why it's so popular with them is that a 401k or an owner K is the only vehicle that will allow to have loans against the assets within that retirement plan. So another response to COVID this year, the IRS actually increased the amount that you can take out of or borrow against a 401k or an owner K. It used to be 50% of the assets up to $100,000. So 2019, the maximum you could take out of a 401k or an owner K was $50,000, assuming you had $100,000 in there. Now, because of COVID, the IRS actually increased that limit to 100%. So assuming you have at least $100,000 in there, if you have a 401k or an owner K, you could take out non-taxable, it's a loan against the assets in your 401k, $100,000 and pay yourself back. In essence, become your own bank. So that's a fantastic part. And I should also mention, if you are a very successful business and you have, let's say, a dentist practice or a lawyer practice and you're a high wage earner earning 6 or 7 figures a year, if you have an employer-sponsored plan, you could put more than the $58,000 a year away by attaching a defined benefit to your 401k plan, in essence creating a pension plan for not only you and your company, but for the other key employees in your businesses.
So it sounds like you, in essence, you get to have your cake and eat it too, as they say. Because you get all the benefits of putting that money away somewhere that's intended for your retirement, but then at the same time, now you pretty much have access to your full liquidity. You borrow it as a loan. The interest rate is most likely way lower than whatever the normal tax rate would be by taking it out or keeping it as taxable income. And and so all these advantages have come down the pipeline with as a way to help business owners with the hardships that they're facing.
Absolutely.
So that's really exciting, right? So for you guys who are not just real estate investors, but anybody who has high liquidity needs, solo 401k might fit in nicely with how you are operating your business. It's not, a lot of people think that it has to be something totally separate, but I know from experience working with a lot of investors that this is actually a tool on how they conduct business, not just saving from what they make from their business. All right, and then, so one more topic I really kind of want to dive into. I know that this is something that I've researched a bit about, but you were teaching me a lot the last time we were talking, and that was the concept of overfunded insurance. So let's say somebody's doing really well.
Yes.
They're maxing out their other retirement accounts. They're taking advantage of the tax benefits and the liquidity benefits and all of that. But there's more cash coming in. They have plenty of cash to put away where they want to think not just about the death benefit, but also maybe as a source of saving a little bit as they grow additional wealth and access to additional liquidity. So what can you tell us about that?
So this is a very particular situation. It's not available for everybody, but for those high net worth and high wage earners, if you're already maxing out your 401k, because that's going to give you the maximum tax deduction benefit, or your owner K, whichever one you participate in, and you've already got those 3 to 6 months of emergency savings account liquid. So if it takes $10,000 to run your home, that is $30,000 to $60,000, assuming you have a regular type job. If you have a very specialized type job, I will tell my clients to have more like 12 months of reserves on the side as cash that is liquid that you could access at any time. So assuming you have all of that in place and you have enough protection for you and your family, and you still have money and you would like to have a tax-free vehicle for retirement in the future, and you make too much money to contribute to a Roth Direct, then there is something called a life insurance retirement plan. And so what we will do is actually take a life insurance contract. So A, you have to be able to pass the underwriting, because you do go through underwriting. So if you have any known issues, be upfront with that so we can best prepare or get you to the carrier that would give you the highest success rate. And then 2, just have enough money to put aside every single year for several years, because what you're doing is you're taking, let's say, a $500,000 death benefit. So it's not a huge number in terms of a death benefit, because what you want to do is overfund the premium. So if it normally is going to cost you, let's say, $5,000 to fund a $500,000 death benefit, what you're going to do is put down $10,000 for 10 years, let's say. Or it could be more than that. It could be $20,000 down for 10 years. So if you're doing $500,000, you put down 20 grand a year for 10 years, that's $200,000 over 10 years. And then what you're going to do, and keep in mind, you have to be young enough to do this, you have to just sit back and relax. So once you've funded it for 10 years, after the 10th year, you don't fund it and you just let it sit there and invest. You go to an investment professional for something like this, because the investments in the life insurance are going to grow in the same way that your investments in your owner K or your regular brokerage account will grow, and your financial advisor will know your risk tolerance, timeline, etc. And put you in the appropriate portfolio objective. But once you've funded it 10 years and waited at least another, let's say 5 to 10 years, then you're retiring. And now you're going to withdraw that cash value. It's essentially a loan against a policy that's going to be tax-free, that you will not pay back, and you're going to live off of that income, let's say for the next 10 or 15 years. And it provides a significant amount of tax-free income, so you're not relying on just Social Security.
Great.
Yeah.
So in other words, guys, what we're trying to kind of unpack here is that as you progress in whatever your money-making venture is, whether you're advancing your career, you're advancing your business, you're building a larger entity that has maybe multiple employees, you get to look forward to more and more buckets, right? You get another bucket where you get to pour more of that money in, where it's giving you an additional benefit, and then it comes back to you in a way where you're not getting slammed with taxes, where you get to keep more of what you make. Now, I'm going to throw one more question and go right back to the beginning. Let's say somebody, maybe they found out all about this and they're really excited. They're like, oh boy, I could have my own business, a solo 401k. I could have my overfunded life insurance. I could, get away almost scot-free with paying taxes. I'm really excited, but I have like $20,000 in credit card debt. What do I do? Do I focus on that first? Do I have some sort of balanced plan of attack? What is it that you recommend?
Absolutely. So there's good debt and bad debt. Okay, so the bad debt is a high interest credit cards. That's the kind of debt that will bury you. So if you have high interest student loans, high interest credit cards, you need to devise a plan to get rid of that debt first, because that's a debt that will bury you and will take a very long time if you don't eliminate it in the short run. So you want to make sure that that kind of debt is done and at zero, and then start putting money away, because it's just going to be perpetual if you don't pay it off.
What's the point of making 5 or 6 or 7% in a mutual fund if you're leaking 15 or 20% on a credit card? And a lot of times people like to just think in terms of, well, I'll just make so much money or I'll outgrow it. It won't even matter. Interest rates matter, yes, because compounding growth matters, and you can either have something compounding in your favor or compounding against you. And so, and everybody has a little bit of a different opinion when it comes to juggling debt, particularly if they're maybe more aggressive or they have some sort of money-making venture that relies on leverage. But it's something you at least have to consider. What is this costing me to hold on to this debt? And a lot of people psychologically, they just feel better knowing it's paid off. They just know that, okay, I don't have something that's eating 20% or 30% of my paycheck. Now it gets to go to everything that I look forward to, my goals, my dreams, what I want to do to build, what I want to build up for my family, their future, right? So debt is part of the equation. That's something that you help them with, right?
Sure. That's definitely the first step, is finding out where they are now.
Okay.
For sure.
Great. So my last question is, what is your favorite food?
Chocolate.
So guys, if that's something to consider. If you're going after one of those life insurance policies, you might want to take it easy on the chocolate. We want to get through that underwriting phase. So, all right. So guys, again, the original live presentation, which talked about the business formula, that's going to be available. Contact information is going to be available to you. Jo, I know personally, she's always happy to talk, always happy to answer questions. If you have any concerns or any goals and you just want to pick her brain, reach out to her. That's why she's here. That's why she works with us at Lifestyle 180. All right, thanks for joining us, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.